Ken Anderson. Drafted in 1971, he spent his entire 16-year career with the Cincinnati Bengals, quietly becoming one of the most precise quarterbacks the league had ever seen. He wasn't a household name, but his numbers told a different story. Anderson led the NFL in completion percentage 3 times, passer rating 4 times, and passing yards twice. In 1982, he set a single-season record with a 70.6% completion rate, a mark that stood for more than 2 decades. His finest year came in 1981, when he threw for over 3,700 yards and 29 touchdowns, earning NFL MVP and Offensive Player of the Year honors. That same season, he carried the Bengals to their first Super Bowl appearance, where his accuracy set records despite a loss to Joe Montana's 49ers in Super Bowl 16. Yet despite his resume, 4 Pro Bowls, multiple league titles in accuracy, and a reputation as a pioneer of the modern passing game, Anderson remains on the outside of the Hall of Fame. Overshadowed by bigger markets and the absence of a championship, his name is too often left out of conversations about the all-time greats. But for those who watched him play, Ken Anderson was more than just a quarterback. He was the original model of efficiency, a master of precision, and one of the most underrated passers in NFL history. Philip Rivers. From 2004 to 2020, he was the face of the San Diego and later Los Angeles Chargers, a fiery competitor who never missed a start once he became the team's quarterback. Drafted in 2004 out of North Carolina State, Rivers took over in 2006 and went on to start 240 consecutive regular season games, the second longest streak by a quarterback in NFL history. Across 17 seasons, Rivers piled up more than 63,000 passing yards and 421 touchdowns, ranking in the top 6 all-time in both categories when he retired. He was selected to 8 Pro Bowls, engineered dozens of game-winning drives, and gave the Chargers stability under center for a decade and a half. Yet despite his remarkable production, Rivers is rarely mentioned in the same breath as Brady, Manning, or Breeze. The reason is simple: he never made it to a Super Bowl. Playing in the AFC during an era dominated by dynasties, Rivers often saw deep playoff runs cut short, including the 2007 AFC Championship where he played on a torn ACL. But his toughness and leadership were never in question. Known for his unique throwing motion and fiery sideline energy, Rivers commanded respect from teammates and opponents alike. No Lombardi trophy rests in his case, but his numbers, durability, and competitive fire cement him as one of the most underrated quarterbacks the NFL has ever seen. Warren Moon's journey through football history is unlike any other. From 1984 to 2000, he played in the NFL with the Houston Oilers, Minnesota Vikings, Seattle Seahawks, and Kansas City Chiefs. But before the NFL, Moon made his name in Canada. After going undrafted in 1978, largely due to racial bias against black quarterbacks, he joined the Edmonton Eskimos of the Canadian Football League. There, he dominated, winning 5 straight Grey Cups from 1978 to 1982 and earning the Grey Cup MVP award twice. When Moon finally entered the NFL in 1984, he proved himself immediately. Over 17 seasons, he was selected to 9 Pro Bowls and threw for 49,325 yards and 291 touchdowns, ranking among the most prolific passers of his era. With his quick release and precision deep ball, he became the centerpiece of Houston's famed run-and-shoot offense, while later putting up big numbers with Minnesota. Yet despite his remarkable production, Moon is often overlooked in discussions of the greatest quarterbacks. The years he spent in Canada cost him valuable NFL records, and the stereotypes he faced early in his career delayed his opportunity to shine on the biggest stage. Still, Warren Moon's legacy reaches far beyond statistics. He not only earned a place in both the Canadian and Pro Football Hall of Fame, but he also broke barriers, paving the way for future generations of black quarterbacks. Underrated in name but revolutionary in impact, Warren Moon changed the game forever. By the way, I'm going to be posting a lot more interesting videos on the channel. I'll greatly appreciate it if you could show support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Thank you. Randall Cunningham entered the NFL in 1985, drafted in the 2nd round by the Philadelphia Eagles. Standing 6'4" with elite speed and one of the strongest arms in football, he became the league's first true dual-threat quarterback, capable of beating defenses through the air or on the ground. For over a decade in Philadelphia, he delivered unforgettable highlights, long touchdown passes, impossible scrambles, and runs that left defenders grasping at air. After stepping away from the game, Cunningham returned with the Minnesota Vikings in 1997, and the following year, he produced one of the greatest seasons a quarterback has ever had. Surrounded by Randy Moss and Chris Carter, he threw for 3,704 yards and 34 touchdowns, led the NFL in passer rating, and guided the Vikings to a 15-1 record. He was named first-team All-Pro and finished as the runner-up for league MVP. By the end of his career, Cunningham had thrown for nearly 30,000 yards, rushed for nearly 5,000 more, and earned 4 Pro Bowl selections. Yet his legacy is often reduced to being fun to watch rather than truly great. Critics pointed to inconsistency and playoff disappointments, overlooking the fact that he laid the foundation for the modern dual-threat quarterback. Randall Cunningham may never have won a Super Bowl, but his influence echoes in every mobile quarterback who came after him. He was ahead of his time and one of the most underrated players in NFL history, Jim Plunkett. A career that began as the #1 overall pick in the 1971 NFL Draft by the New England Patriots after winning the Heisman Trophy at Stanford. His early years in New England were tough. Sacks, injuries, and inconsistent play weighed him down. A brief stint with the San Francisco 49ers followed, and by the late 1970s, it looked as if his career was finished. Then came the Raiders. In 1980, Al Davis gave him a chance. Midway through that season, Plunkett took over the starting role. He led the Raiders to Super Bowl 15, where he threw 3 touchdowns against the Eagles and earned MVP honors. That win made the Raiders the first wildcard team in history to capture the Lombardi Trophy. 3 years later, he did it again, guiding the Los Angeles Raiders to a dominant victory in Super Bowl 18 over Washington. 2 championships, both with Plunkett under center. Yet despite those rings, nearly 26,000 career passing yards, and 164 touchdowns, Plunkett remains the only eligible quarterback with 2 Super Bowl wins as a starter who has not been inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. His critics point to his nearly even ratio of touchdowns to interceptions, but his supporters argue that resilience, leadership, and clutch postseason success should define his legacy. Jim Plunkett's story forces a question that still lingers today. Should greatness be measured by statistics or by championships? Tony Romo. Undrafted out of Eastern Illinois in 2003, he signed with the Dallas Cowboys as a long-shot backup. By 2006, he had earned the starting job in Arlington, Texas, and for the next decade, Romo was the face of America's team. Across 14 seasons, he threw for more than 34,000 yards and 248 touchdowns, finishing his career with a passer rating of 97.1, one of the best in NFL history, and at the time, the 4th highest ever recorded. From 2006 to 2014, Romo consistently ranked among the NFL's elite in efficiency, top 5 in yards per attempt, passing touchdowns, and passer rating. Yet despite those numbers, he never escaped criticism. When Dallas faltered in the playoffs, blame often fell squarely on him. The infamous botched hold on a playoff field goal in Seattle in 2007 became a defining image, overshadowing the fact that he was carrying flawed rosters with shaky defenses and constant turnover. Looking back, the picture shifts. Romo's statistical production stands beside Hall of Fame names, and his ability to keep Dallas competitive through uneven years becomes clearer when comparing how the team struggled without him. Though he never reached a Super Bowl, Romo remains one of the most efficient, consistent quarterbacks of his era, and one of the most underrated. Archie Manning, born in Drew, Mississippi in 1949, was drafted 2nd overall by the New Orleans Saints in 1971. For more than a decade, from 1971 to 1982, he was the face of a franchise known more for losing than for success. Yet in the middle of constant struggles, Manning's talent still broke through. In 1978, he was named NFC Player of the Year by UPI, and he earned back-to-back Pro Bowl selections in 1978 and 1979. That same year, he led the Saints to a 7-9 record, the best in team history at the time. A dual-threat quarterback, Manning threw for nearly 24,000 career passing yards, 125 touchdowns, and added over 2,000 rushing yards with 18 rushing scores. His quickness and mobility weren't luxuries. They were necessities, behind one of the league's weakest offensive lines. Still, his career was weighed down by the Saints' failures. He never played on a winning team, never made the playoffs, and retired with a starting record of 35-101-3. Statistically the worst among quarterbacks with over 100 starts. After his time in New Orleans, he closed his career with the Houston Oilers and Minnesota Vikings before retiring in 1984. Though often remembered simply as the father of Peyton and Eli, Archie Manning was far more than a footnote. He was a gifted passer, a tough competitor, and one of the most underrated quarterbacks in NFL history, whose legacy was shaped not by his ability, but by the misfortune of playing for the wrong team at the wrong time. Frank Ryan isn't a household name today, but in the 1960s, he quietly became one of the most successful quarterbacks of his era. Drafted by the Los Angeles Rams in 1958, Ryan's career took off after he was traded to the Cleveland Browns in 1962. By 1964, he was the Browns' starter, and that season he led the league with 25 touchdown passes while earning a Pro Bowl selection. His greatest moment came in the 1964 NFL Championship game, when he threw 3 touchdowns to power Cleveland to a 27-0 victory over Johnny Unitas and the Baltimore Colts, the last championship in Browns history. Ryan was selected to 3 straight Pro Bowls from 1964 to 1966 and guided the Browns to multiple postseason appearances. Over his career, he finished with 16,042 passing yards and 149 touchdowns, numbers that may look modest compared to today's passing-heavy game. But in his era, they marked him as one of the league's most reliable signal callers. Despite this, Ryan is often overlooked. Playing before the Super Bowl era dimmed the spotlight on his achievements, and his reputation as a brilliant mathematician, he earned a PhD while still playing, sometimes overshadowed his football legacy. But for Cleveland fans, he remains the quarterback who brought home the city's last NFL title, making Frank Ryan one of the most underrated quarterbacks in NFL history. Steve McNair was drafted 3rd overall in the 1995 NFL Draft by the Houston Oilers out of Alcorn State, a historically black college. He carried the expectations of proving that small school quarterbacks could excel in the NFL. When the franchise relocated to Tennessee, McNair became the face of the Titans, a tough, durable leader who built his reputation on resilience. His most famous moment came in Super Bowl 34. With seconds left, McNair drove the Titans downfield against the St. Louis Rams, completing a desperate 16-yard pass to Kevin Dyson while breaking free from defenders. But on the final play, Dyson was tackled just 1 yard short of the goal line, sealing the heartbreaking loss. It became one of the most iconic finishes in NFL history. In 2003, McNair reached the peak of his career, earning the NFL MVP award, shared with Peyton Manning, recognition of his grit and production, even as he played through injuries. Few quarterbacks matched his combination of toughness, leadership, and ability to will a team into contention. Yet today, his name is rarely mentioned alongside the greats of his generation. While Brady, Manning, and Favre dominate the era's conversation, McNair is often overlooked. But for those who watched him every Sunday, he wasn't just underrated. He embodied the warrior spirit of the game, leaving everything on the field until the very end. Jake Delhomme's path to NFL relevance was anything but easy. Undrafted out of Louisiana Lafayette in 1997, he spent time on practice squads and in NFL Europe before finally earning his shot in Carolina in 2003. When he stepped in as the Panthers starter, he immediately changed the trajectory of the franchise. That very season, Delhomme led Carolina on a stunning playoff run. He beat Dallas, threw a 69-yard game-winning strike to Steve Smith in a double overtime classic at St. Louis, and then topped Philadelphia to capture the NFC Championship. The ride ended on Super Bowl Sunday against Tom Brady's Patriots, but Delhomme's performance was unforgettable. 323 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and an 85-yard bomb to Muhsin Muhammad, still the longest offensive play in Super Bowl history. With less than 2 minutes left, he tied the game with a strike to Ricky Proehl, only to watch Adam Vinatieri kick New England to victory. Over 7 seasons with the Panthers, Delhomme threw for more than 19,000 yards and 120 touchdowns, earning a Pro Bowl nod and setting a franchise record with 21 game-winning drives. Yet, despite his playoff heroics and consistency, he was often dismissed as a game manager. The numbers and moments tell a different story. One of a quarterback who gave Carolina legitimacy, hope, and some of the most dramatic football the league has ever seen. For Panthers fans, Jake Delhomme isn't just underrated. He's the heartbeat of an era when Carolina nearly shocked the NFL world. Dave Krieg's journey is one of the NFL's most remarkable underdog stories. Undrafted out of tiny Milton College in 1980, he signed with the Seattle Seahawks as a long shot to even make the roster. Instead, he went on to become the franchise's steady hand throughout the 1980s, guiding Seattle to its first playoff victories and even an appearance in the 1983 AFC Championship game. By 1984, Krieg had cemented himself as the Seahawks' leader, throwing for over 3,600 yards and 32 touchdowns while earning his first Pro Bowl selection. He would collect 2 more Pro Bowl nods in 1988 and 1989, proving his consistency across the decade. In total, Krieg threw for more than 26,000 yards and 195 touchdowns with Seattle, ranking among the top quarterbacks in team history. Over his 19-year NFL career, spanning the Chiefs, Lions, Cardinals, Bears, and Oilers after Seattle, Krieg amassed over 38,000 passing yards and 261 touchdowns. He wasn't Marino's gunslinger or Montana's icon, but he was durable, dependable, and repeatedly gave his teams a chance to win. What makes Dave Krieg underrated is simple. He played in an era dominated by legends, and his quiet consistency never grabbed headlines. But when you stack his numbers, longevity, and the role he played in building the Seahawks foundation, his place in NFL history is undeniable. Dave Krieg may never have been flashy, but he was one of the game's most reliable quarterbacks. Jeff Garcia. Born in Gilroy, California, he wasn't drafted into the NFL, but instead began his professional career in 1994 with the Calgary Stampeders of the Canadian Football League. In Canada, he became a star, winning a Grey Cup in 1998, earning Grey Cup MVP honors, and proving that despite his smaller frame and unconventional path, he could thrive at the highest level. In 1999, Garcia got his shot in the NFL with the San Francisco 49ers, stepping into the daunting role of replacing Hall of Famer Steve Young. By 2000, he had silenced critics, throwing for a franchise record 4,278 yards and earning his first Pro Bowl selection. Over the next 3 seasons, Garcia guided the 49ers to the playoffs twice, including a legendary comeback in the 2002 wildcard round when he erased a 24-point deficit to beat the New York Giants. He made 3 straight Pro Bowls from 2000 to 2002, cementing himself as one of the league's top quarterbacks of the era. But Garcia's career was defined by resilience. After leaving San Francisco, he endured short stints in Cleveland and Detroit, before reviving his career in 2006 with the Philadelphia Eagles. Filling in for an injured Donovan McNabb, Garcia led the Eagles to a 5-game win streak, an NFC East title, and a playoff berth, proving once again that he could deliver under pressure. In 2007, he signed with Tampa Bay, guided the Buccaneers to the postseason, and earned his 4th and final Pro Bowl nod. Across 10 NFL seasons, Garcia threw for over 25,000 yards and 161 touchdowns. Yet, despite his achievements, he is rarely mentioned among the greats of his era. His lack of prototypical size, late start in the league, and journeyman path kept him underrated in football history. But when you look at his numbers, his playoff moments, and his ability to adapt and win in multiple systems, Jeff Garcia stands out as one of the most overlooked quarterbacks the NFL has ever seen. Donovan McNabb, drafted 2nd overall by the Philadelphia Eagles in 1999, became the defining quarterback of the franchise for more than a decade. From the moment he stepped onto the field, he transformed a struggling team into a perennial contender, carrying the hopes of Philadelphia through the 2000s. McNabb earned 6 Pro Bowl selections and led the Eagles to 5 NFC Championship games, including a trip to Super Bowl 39 against Tom Brady's Patriots. He became the franchise leader in passing yards, touchdowns, completions, and postseason victories, blending a powerful arm with mobility that made him one of the most dynamic quarterbacks of his era. At a time when the Eagles often lacked elite offensive weapons, his consistency kept them in the championship conversation year after year. Yet, McNabb's career is too often defined by what he didn't achieve, rather than what he did. Critics point to the absence of a Super Bowl victory, overshadowing his ability to keep Philadelphia relevant in an era dominated by names like Manning, Favre, and Brady. Still, the truth is clear. For over a decade, McNabb carried a franchise on his back, making him one of the most underrated quarterbacks in NFL history. Marc Bulger, quarterback of the St. Louis Rams from 2002 to 2009, and one of the most overlooked passers of his generation. Originally drafted by the Saints in the 6th round of 2000, Bulger bounced through practice squads in New Orleans and Atlanta before landing in St. Louis. When Kurt Warner's injuries opened the door, Bulger seized the opportunity. In 2003, he threw for nearly 3,850 yards, led the Rams to a 12-4 record and the NFC West title, and was named to the Pro Bowl, where he walked away as Pro Bowl MVP. By 2006, Bulger had his best statistical year, passing for 4,301 yards with 24 touchdowns and earning another Pro Bowl selection. That same season, the Rams became one of the rare teams in NFL history to feature a 4,000-yard passer, a 1,500-yard rusher in Steven Jackson, and two 1,000-yard receivers in Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce. Across his career, Bulger totaled more than 22,800 passing yards and 122 touchdowns with a 62% completion rate. Yet despite his consistency, his name rarely comes up among the era's best. Overshadowed by Warner's greatest show on turf before him and weighed down by a Rams franchise in decline after him, Bulger quietly carried St. Louis through a turbulent decade. He never won a Super Bowl, but for years, he was the steady hand that kept the Rams competitive, one of the NFL's most underrated quarterbacks, Boomer Esiason. A name many know today as a polished broadcaster, but in his prime, he was one of the most dangerous left-handed quarterbacks the NFL had ever seen. Drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals in 1984, he spent 9 years leading the franchise before later stops with the Jets, Cardinals, and a final season back in Cincinnati in 1997. His defining moment came in 1988. That year, Boomer threw for over 3,500 yards and 28 touchdowns, earning NFL MVP honors and guiding the Bengals to Super Bowl 23. Under his command of the innovative no-huddle offense, Cincinnati came within 1 minute of shocking the 49ers, falling only to Joe Montana's legendary final drive. Across 14 seasons, Boomer totaled nearly 38,000 passing yards, 247 touchdowns, 4 Pro Bowls, and a first-team All-Pro selection. Yet despite those numbers, his name is rarely mentioned alongside Montana, Marino, or Elway. Analysts have called him one of the most underrated quarterbacks of all time, overshadowed by the flashier stars of his era, even though he remains one of the most successful passers in Bengals history. Today, most remember Boomer for his voice behind the microphone, but the record shows he was far more than a broadcaster. He was an MVP, a Super Bowl starter, and a leader whose impact on the game deserves far more respect than it usually gets. Trent Green's story is one of perseverance and quiet excellence. Born in 1970 and drafted in the 8th round of the 1993 NFL Draft by the San Diego Chargers, his career began slowly. He spent time as a backup in Washington and had his shot with the Saints. Louis Rams derailed by a devastating knee injury in 1999. But in 2001, when he was traded to the Kansas City Chiefs, Green finally found the stage that fit his talent. In Kansas City, he became the centerpiece of Dick Vermeil's high-powered offense. From 2002 to 2005, he threw for over 4,000 yards in 3 straight seasons, earning Pro Bowl honors in 2003 and 2005. He led the Chiefs to a 13-3 record in 2003, guiding an offense built around stars like Priest Holmes, Tony Gonzalez, and Willie Roaf. That year's playoff clash with the Colts became legendary. The game had no punts, a testament to how unstoppable the Chiefs' offense was with Green at the helm. His name still sits atop Kansas City's record books: 81 consecutive starts, 24 games with over 300 yards passing, and even a 99-yard touchdown strike in 2002, tying the longest play in NFL history. Yet despite these accomplishments, Green is rarely mentioned among the elite of his era. His Chiefs never advanced past the divisional round, and postseason shortcomings kept him from wider recognition. But those who watched know the truth. Between 2003 and 2005, no quarterback in the league threw for more yards than Trent Green. He was durable, consistent, and the steady hand of one of the most explosive units the NFL has ever seen. Underrated, not because he lacked ability, but because the spotlight of January glory never came his way. Rich Gannon's journey is the story of a quarterback who refused to fade away. Born in Philadelphia in 1965, he starred at the University of Delaware before being drafted by the Minnesota Vikings in 1987. For more than a decade, he bounced around the league, playing for the Vikings, Washington, and Kansas City, often viewed as a solid backup, but never a true franchise leader. Everything changed in 1999 when he signed with the Oakland Raiders. Under head coach John Gruden, Gannon's quick release, accuracy, and intelligence finally had the perfect system. From 1999 to 2002, he became one of the NFL's elite passers, earning 4 straight Pro Bowl selections and 2 first-team All-Pro honors. His finest season came in 2002 when he threw for over 4,600 yards, led the league in completions, and was named NFL MVP while guiding the Raiders to Super Bowl 37. Although the Super Bowl ended in disappointment, Gannon's late career surge was remarkable. Critics often downplay his legacy because his prime was short and ended abruptly with injuries in 2004. But in those peak years, few quarterbacks matched his command of the game. Rich Gannon remains one of the most underrated quarterbacks in NFL history, proof that perseverance can turn a journeyman into an MVP. Matt Hasselbeck, born on September 25, 1975 in Boulder, Colorado, entered the NFL in 1998 as a sixth-round draft pick by the Green Bay Packers. After backing up Brett Favre for 2 seasons, he was traded to the Seattle Seahawks in 2001, a move that would define his career. Over the next decade in Seattle, Hasselbeck became the face of the franchise. He led the Seahawks to 6 playoff appearances, 4 division titles, and, most importantly, their first Super Bowl berth in the 2005 season. That year, he threw for over 3,400 yards, 24 touchdowns, and just 9 interceptions, guiding Seattle to a 13-3 record and an NFC championship. Hasselbeck's career was also marked by unforgettable moments, like the 2003 wildcard game in Green Bay, when he boldly declared at the overtime coin toss, "We want the ball and we're going to score," only to see his pass intercepted for the game-ending touchdown. It was a painful reminder of how thin the line is between triumph and heartbreak in the NFL. Despite earning 3 Pro Bowl selections and leading one of the league's most consistent offenses of the mid-2000s, Hasselbeck was often overshadowed by flashier contemporaries. Yet his steady leadership, resilience, and role in transforming Seattle into a legitimate contender make him one of the most underrated quarterbacks of his era. Matt Hasselbeck may not always be mentioned among the greats, but his impact on the Seahawks and on the game is undeniable. Alex Smith's NFL journey is one of resilience and quiet excellence. Drafted first overall in 2005 by the San Francisco 49ers, he entered the league with sky-high expectations, but constant coaching changes and injuries defined his early years. 7 offensive coordinators in 7 seasons left him branded as inconsistent, even a bust in the eyes of many. His career transformed in Kansas City. Under Andy Reid, Smith stabilized the Chiefs and became one of the league's most efficient quarterbacks. He earned Pro Bowl honors in 2013, 2016, and 2017, and in his final season with Kansas City, he threw for over 4,000 yards, led the NFL in passer rating at 104.7, and showcased the best deep passing numbers in the league. Despite this, he was often dismissed as a game manager, overshadowed by flashier stars. In 2018, while with Washington, Smith's career nearly ended when a broken leg turned life-threatening. He endured 17 surgeries, faced the possibility of amputation, and spent months with an external fixator attached to his leg. Doctors told him survival was the priority, not football. Yet, in 2020, he returned to the field, leading Washington to a division title and earning NFL Comeback Player of the Year. Smith's story is more than statistics. He may never have been celebrated as elite, but his professionalism, leadership, and extraordinary comeback from one of the worst injuries in sports history cement him as one of the most underrated quarterbacks the NFL has ever seen. Matt Ryan, known across the league as Matty Ice, was drafted 3rd overall by the Atlanta Falcons in 2008 and quickly became the face of the franchise. Over the next 14 seasons in Atlanta and one final year with the Indianapolis Colts, Ryan built a career rooted in consistency, leadership, and quiet excellence. In 2016, Ryan had a career year. He threw for 4,944 yards, 38 touchdowns, and posted a passer rating of 117.1. That season earned him NFL MVP honors and a trip to Super Bowl 51, where the Falcons famously led 28-3 before a historic collapse at the hands of Tom Brady and the Patriots. Despite solid numbers in that game, 284 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, Ryan's legacy has often been unfairly defined by that single night, but his body of work tells a different story. Ryan became just the 2nd fastest quarterback in NFL history to surpass 60,000 career passing yards. He finished with over 62,000 yards, 381 touchdowns, and 4 Pro Bowl selections. Pro Football Focus consistently ranked him among the league's top-graded quarterbacks, praising his efficiency, accuracy, and command of the offense. And yet, despite being one of the most statistically consistent quarterbacks of his generation, Ryan rarely got the same recognition as his peers. Overshadowed by flashier names and one painful Super Bowl memory, his career is often overlooked in the conversation about all-time greats. But for those who truly followed the game, Matt Ryan wasn't just reliable. He was elite, and perhaps one of the most underrated quarterbacks in NFL history. Did I miss any name you think is an underrated quarterback? Please mention the player under the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, I'm gonna be posting a lot more interesting videos on the channel. I'd greatly appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. Thank you very much.